All right, it's great to be with you today. I am the immediate past president of EDPA, and Andrew asked me, he said, so, what's your new life like? And I said, my new life is great in large part because I don't have to worry about my old life because I know that it's in great hands under the leadership of Miller Girvin. I've been involved in economic development circles for really the better part of 30 years in Alabama, and there's one thing that we always talk about in economic development circles, and that's how do we develop and retain or attract back the top talent that we've developed in Alabama. Miller Girvin is a great example of what that kind of, what potential you can realize if you do that. Miller was born and raised in the Birmingham area. After graduating from Princeton and working for a few years in Washington, D.C., she came back home. And boy, has she made a difference since she's been back home. Among other things, she was the founding CEO of the Alabama Capital Network, which is really Alabama's first formal angel investor network. She served on Governor Ivey's Innovation Commission. That Innovation Commission actually led to the creation of Innovate Alabama, and if you're not familiar with all the great work that they've done in the couple of 3 years that they've been in existence, you should Google them because they've done incredible work. And she currently serves on the Alabama Digital Expansion Authority Board. That group is responsible for making sure that Alabama stays on the good side of the digital divide. A couple of years ago, before EDPA was created, Alabama was 47th or 48th in the deployment of fiber. Now we're in the middle 20s, so they're making a great difference. Miller is a wife to Josh, mother for Hamilton and Bibb, and an indispensable ally for anybody who wants to make Alabama better. Please join me in welcoming Miller Girvin.
Thank you, Greg. So it really is an incredible honor to be here today and to connect with this awesome room full of business leaders, community leaders, philanthropic leaders. All of your work drives direct success and plays a role in making Alabama better for business, for talent, as Greg mentioned, and just life overall. So I'm excited to share how EDPA is working to support those efforts. And speaking of honors, it is an incredible honor to take the reins from Greg Barker. It is really both intimidating and empowering at the same time. He did an incredible job as our president for 4.5 years and remains an unbelievable mentor to me personally, professionally, and it really is just an honor. So thank you. So as EDPA's new president, my role and that of our team, and you heard we've got 3 here today, Lauren, Estes, and Jordan, and I also have a board member in Scott Adams sitting up here, so I'll make sure I do him proud. But our goal is to ensure that Alabama remains a place where businesses can thrive, communities can grow, and talent can find meaningful opportunities right here at home. We're here to be a resource, working alongside each of you to attract new industries, support homegrown businesses, and make Alabama as competitive as possible. Well, maybe. There we go. So at EDPA, we organize our work into pillars that reflect the local and community levels and their needs within the state. So we're going to dive into each of these, but we work on lead generation, business intelligence, innovation entrepreneurship, talent retention, and the development of solid economic development policy. So these pillars allow us to deliver targeted resources and programs to help all of you prepare for and pursue opportunities for growth. So each of these pillars is critical to driving growth, and they work together to help create a strong business environment, whether that's helping a local company expand, attract a new industry to the state, or prepare young professionals to succeed in Alabama's workforce. And they do not operate in silos. They complement each other. For example, the information that we glean through business intelligence drives our lead generation efforts, while innovation and the growth of entrepreneurial ventures in the state ties directly to the talent. So this integrated approach allows us to respond to any challenges or respond as best we can and all of our opportunities in the state holistically. So our goal is really to understand what you need and try and provide that. This clicker does not want to hit me the first time. So almost 3 years ago, under the leadership and vision of Greg Barker, EDPA started the Alabama Business Intelligence Center, which is now known as AL Intel. And Lauren, if you'll give us a wave, I know we've already acknowledged you, but Lauren and her team at the Business Intelligence Center work on both proactive and then also reactive research that our partners in economic development across the state of Alabama really need. So that platform that has proven itself incredibly valuable across the state of Alabama provides data on workforce trends, real estate and industry insights so that businesses, policymakers, and communities can have a really informed approach to how they grow. And in fact, in 2024, so just last year, the Department of Commerce under Secretary Ellen McNair, who I saw will be here, I think, in a couple weeks, and you'll hear, I'm sure, all about this comprehensive strategic economic development plan, but it's known as Catalyst. I hope some of y'all have seen information about that, but it did a great job of identifying 10 key areas where Alabama could be really competitive for growth. But as we all know, it's really hard to proactively pursue 10 different areas, and these are big areas. So it was determined that for 2025, proactive efforts would be around the 4 sectors that you see behind me. So mobility, and that includes aerospace, defense, life science, and forestry. So those were not chosen in a vacuum. If you look at those, the sectors each play to our strengths as a state, our natural resources, our existing industry, and our research institutions. So in order to make sure that those businesses that we are attempting to attract, and then of course the ones that we are retaining and growing in our communities, in those sectors especially, we want to make sure that they have places to land. Do they have sites? Do they have buildings? We actively work with local economic developers across the state to help develop the physical infrastructure for sites. So you see up there site development and seeds. One of the programs that we at EDPA help administer with the Department of Commerce it stands for Site Evaluation and Economic Development Strategies. And that is a program designed to help local developers assess the viability of land that they may have or an industrial site, something to make sure that they are competitive. And it also allows them capital to purchase assets or add necessary components like sewer, water, roads, power to make those sites most marketable for future projects. Our research team also helps local communities respond to RFPs that they might receive from companies or site selection consultants. We get requests probably 10 to 15 a week from communities asking about labor force, about suppliers that might be particularly relevant to a project that's come into the state. And we help them have the information to respond to those RFPs. So we do have the tools to make them be more competitive. And lastly, Lauren would kill me if I did not mention tax credits in a room full of business people. But both Innovate Alabama and the Department of Commerce have programs. Commerce is called Growing Alabama, that you can use your corporate tax liability, income tax liability at the state level to support economic development projects. So this year, there will be close to $50 million for those 2 programs alone. And I would encourage each of you as leaders, Lauren has put together and her team have put together some really great collateral that can be found on the EDPA website. But really, it's a one-to-one match, and it's incredibly easy. So, not to knock any of our state efforts, but if you, rather than paying into state coffers, would rather pay 50% of your liability into economic development projects, that is an option. So I would definitely encourage y'all to take advantage of that. And then lastly, So all of this business intelligence informs our lead generation efforts. So our goal is to drive business attraction to the state of Alabama. We have an alumni initiative where we, through the efforts of AL Intel, have identified key executives that have graduated from Alabama colleges and universities. They are now outside the state, they are leaders in their companies, and their companies are growing. They are ripe to come to Alabama, and they've already spent time here. We do our best to make an inroad to them, invite them back, invite them to see what wonderful things are going on in the state of Alabama and how we could be a great spot for their business, either headquarters or expansion opportunities. And then I mentioned those target sectors from Catalyst. We are looking at trade shows all over the world that are focused on those, and our lead gen team goes out and builds really strong relationships and sells Alabama to those folks. And then lastly, you'll see why this is particularly exciting for me, and Greg mentioned my work in innovation. So we are proud to share that our lead generation efforts, while they have not often been really targeted towards tech company recruitment, we are now able to say that we can actively target tech companies to move them to the state of Alabama. So many of you may be familiar with the effort that was previously known as Birmingham Bound. It was a focused tech company recruitment strategy that came out of Shipped in 2018. And when studied people talk about the health of an innovation ecosystem, the data often includes a critical mass of startups. So when a person takes a risk, joins an early stage company, and heaven forbid, the stats don't lie, that company may go out of business. They need somewhere else to go. There are lots of people that are very excited about working for startups. It is often a different risk profile. They don't like big companies, and they want to jump to another startup, and they want to find another startup here locally, so we have to have that critical mass. So the goal was to market Birmingham to those early stage companies, hoping that the low cost of doing business and easier access to support services would be attractive to them, and it was. So Birmingham Bound did succeed at attracting about 20 companies over its lifetime, and it brought a wealth of talent to the region. And just at the end of last year, a transition in leadership gave EDPA an opportunity to do what we had been asked by several communities around the state. They said, we want to recreate this in Mobile or in Huntsville or in Auburn or Tuscaloosa. How can we do that? And so we said, well, what if we created, it doesn't have a name yet, so bear with us, but a statewide tech recruitment platform with someone who is singularly focused on making introductions and creating a soft landing spot for tech companies in Alabama. So we'll use the proven methods that we've worked on for our other lead generation efforts to target specific companies, pursue leads, and provide that compelling argument for Alabama's value proposition and why we are the right place for them to land. So we're really excited about this, and stay tuned. We have been on the search for a director for that, and we should be close. So I wanted to spend a little bit of time on our innovation and entrepreneurship efforts. I've mentioned I was involved in this prior to becoming president of EDPA. And from that background, as well as my work at the Alabama Capital Network, and as part of that, I really understand how challenging and rewarding it is to align and to really make sure that our entrepreneurs have what they need to flourish. And it's not a one-size-fits-all situation. We're fortunate to have statewide leaders that understand all the different moving pieces. And if Greg mentioned Innovate Alabama, that has been an incredible asset to the innovation community of Alabama, and we are really proud to be partners of theirs. And together we're providing mentorship, talent, capital, and a host of other things to build the ecosystem that supports the growth of those companies. So these are two of the flagship programs of EDPA's innovation sector, Alabama Launchpad, and actually we have a winner over here in Peter Inge and Dev Clarity. And I apologize, I looked around and I wasn't sure if I saw others, but I'm thrilled that, that Peter's here. And the HBCU Innovation Internship. So I'll go into detail about each of those, but we are really focused on providing mentorship and capital for early stage companies through Launchpad and giving college students paid internship experience with incubators, accelerators, and innovative companies across the state to really drive that talent pipeline. So, oops, wrong direction. Sorry, y'all, I'm struggling over here. So in 2007, before either, I guess, any of us at EDPA that are in this room were at the organization, some really forward-thinking people said we need to have a statewide business plan competition to help grow these companies. And this competition provides non-dilutive grant funding to very early stage startups. And over the last 17 years, you can see the numbers behind me, 133 companies have received almost $6.5 million. But at the end of every year, we survey those companies and we ask them about revenue, we ask them how much outside capital they've raised, of course we ask them how many jobs they've created, we ask them what their valuation is, if they've taken outside capital and established that valuation. We ask them if they're still in business. As I mentioned, you got 8 out of 10 of these companies that often fail. And we are really proud that roughly 2/3 of that 133 are still alive and operating in Alabama. So that itself is a great testament to the sort of the tenacity of Alabama's entrepreneurs. But also when we look at economic development, you look at an investment, a direct investment of $6.5 million has created indirectly or directly 1,400 jobs. That is an incredible return on investment, and it really solidifies the case for investing in early stage entrepreneurship as a part of economic development strategies. So we also do a lot to challenge ourselves. These are Greg Barker's words, and we take them very seriously, is we're pleased but not satisfied. And we look every year at our programming and we say, what worked, what didn't? And we found that we were having companies, one example would be a life science company competing against a consumer product. Well, those are completely different in their life cycle. They are completely different in terms of approach to a customer. There is a regulatory hurdle for the life science company typically. There's not one for the consumer products typically. It's much lower cost to get a consumer product into the hands of its customers. It takes years to get a life science company into the hands or into patients or whomever it serves. So what we did was we said, we're gonna create 3 tracks. We're gonna have a life science track, a technology track, and a consumer goods track. And they're gonna pay different amounts as their prizes because it takes different amounts of capital to make these companies successful. We also said, we're doing this too often. People are kind of getting a little bit of launchpad fatigue. We're gonna do 2 competitions a year rather than 3. So we're also gonna do regional meetups. We are Birmingham based, but we are all over the state. So we go out and we have regional meetings and we make sure that those entrepreneurs are connected not only to us in Birmingham, but they are connected to their communities. So we will also showcase all of those winners. So we'll have 6 winners at the end of this year, 1 from each track, 2 cycles, 6, y'all can do that math, so can I barely. But we will showcase them in December at a big celebration of Alabama's innovation ecosystem. So would really encourage y'all to come to that because it is really, really neat to watch. And it won't just be the 6 companies that we work with. It will be a whole host of accelerator companies, and Innovate Alabama has grant recipients. And it's a really fun way to see how vibrant our innovation ecosystem is. So flipping to the innovation internship, we're also building the next generation of innovators through this program. This was initially funded through a grant through the Appalachian Regional Commission, and we were incredibly grateful, but we've also been fortunate to expand our initial purview for that. We were gonna serve 16 students from 4 HBCUs in Alabama. And through support from Innovate Alabama and some private donors, we have been able to expand that. We currently have a class of interns. By the end of the spring, we will have 25 interns who have taken advantage of that. And they are working, as I mentioned, paid internships in our state's incubators, accelerators, and early stage startup companies. And that is contributing to them as a talented workforce. Of course, any great work experience teaches you a lot, but also there is a lot of unfamiliarity with what it's like to work in early stage companies or for programs that are supporting early stage companies. It is different from anything most of us have experienced. It is building the airplane as you fly it, and they are getting incredible experience. It just glimpses into what again, that tenacity, what it takes to grow your own thing. So these students are really great. They are smart, they are driven. We have had one who has secured a full-time position as an intern, but with his employer before he has not graduated yet. And then 2 returning interns were placed with different employers. So they interned for one, they came back, they've now got a second internship. And we're able to expand again and include more schools across the state. So we have applications that are open right now for the fall 2025 cohort, and that will close on March 20th. So if you know that talented HBCU students that want to work in the innovation ecosystem, please encourage them. It's a really great program. You can ask Estes questions about that too. She's, wave Estes, there you go. She's running that. And then I mentioned talent retention, whether you're in a startup or in an established business or a business that we are trying to attract to Alabama. It's not just an Alabama problem, it's a problem across the country that we need a talented workforce. Well, the great news is that we were empowered by the state of Alabama a few years ago to kind of look into what could work to retain more of our talented college students after they graduate from our colleges and universities. And through that, we developed this program called Fuel Alabama. And it brings together economic developers, employers, higher ed officials, students, and communities to really try and reshape any perception of Alabama. And in 2021, EDPA and the Alabama Commission on Higher Education researched thousands of current college students across the state to understand what their decision-making process was about how they ended up where they were going to go after they graduate. When do they make those decisions? What social factors are there? What community factors? What do they value in determining where they start their careers? And we found that many of those students, and these were in-state and out-of-state students, they don't know much about Alabama. If they're from Alabama, they know the town where they grew up and maybe their college town if that's different. They don't know much else. The out-of-state students know their college town and that's it. They have no network here. They have no exposure to the businesses and the industry that we know are strong and could offer them a great quality of life and great career trajectories. They just don't know it. And Girvin, after school, when you decide where you're going to end up, and you have an internship, get involved with Fuel, because we want to make sure, talented folks like you stay. So our goal is to drive that awareness. We started working with students who had summer internships in Alabama. We had to start somewhere. You got to take one bite of that elephant at a time. There are, I think it's 47,000 students that graduate from Alabama colleges and universities every year. It's a tremendous opportunity. So we started working with those that have summer internships, and you'll see a little bit more, but in 3 summers, we have set a goal of reaching 600 students, but we've reached almost 900. We work with communities across the state to create events, experiences, professional development opportunities for those students to really see the cities and the communities that they're living in while they're doing those internships. And the employers tell us that the student interns that participate in the Fuel programming, whether they're in Birmingham or across the state, are much more engaged as employees during their internships. They're having fun outside of their job. They're meeting young people. They're getting mentorship and professional development. There are service opportunities. They're just feeling much more invested in while they are interns. So since launching in 2022, Fuel has scaled, as I mentioned. We went from 17 students in 2022 to 900 students last summer. And we also have to understand, I mentioned that we're always trying to make ourselves better. So we wanted to measure, is what we're doing having an impact from a numbers perspective? So last fall, we developed and deployed a digital survey to Fuel alumni over the last 3 summers. And we also did some virtual focus groups to gain some insight. And we just want to know, how has any of this changed the way you think about Alabama? Do you see yourself here in the state? And you can see these numbers, but 63% of those that were sampled say they're considering staying in Alabama. That number was 33% when the survey was done in 2021. 74% say that Fuel directly influenced their decision to stay or move here. Fuel didn't exist in 2021, so we don't have a benchmark back there. One stat that's not on this slide is that 83% of the folks that we surveyed are interested in learning about career opportunities. That number in Alabama, that number was 73%. So things are moving in the right direction, and we're chipping away at it. So we also learned, and this is relevant for all of you, as you have interns during the summer, they need more exposure to the community they're in, especially some of Alabama's lesser known regions. Mentorship, they love small towns. We have taken them, and I'll talk in just a second, I know I'm running out of time. We have taken them all over the state, and they are always blown away by the quality of life and the cool stuff going on in some of our small towns in Alabama. So we're all here in Birmingham. We love Birmingham. It is a great place. We'd love to have them. But if they want to gravitate towards a small town, there are some really awesome options. Mentorship and networking make a huge, huge difference. Y'all pour into them. We heard about the mentorship going on. It matters. Take time, get to know them, understand what matters to them, because they will end up staying when we pour into them. Cost of living and quality of life are huge strengths, no huge surprise, but they do often see a limited career growth. So that is all stuff that's been really important to us to learn from them as we continue to evolve. And this summer, so what we do is we send an RFP out to all our economic development community across the state, and we say, do you want to be involved in creating programming for these summer interns that are living and working in your city this summer? So we have these 12 communities, and some of them, like for example, the River region, Montgomery and Prattville said, can we partner? We've got students all over the region, and we want to make sure that they get together. Absolutely. Auburn and Opelika did something similar. So we try and leave it to the communities to make it work for them. And then I mentioned the summits. So we have, for the past 3 years, we have had what we call summits, weekend summits. We take up to 40 college students on an all expenses paid weekend so this sounds a little bit like your Fontainebleau in Miami, although, oof, I don't know if I could survive that. But we take them to an area of Alabama that they may or may not have visited. And we have board members that will roll out the red carpet for these students. And again, it just makes a difference. They love the attention, they love the mentorship, they love learning about all the opportunities. And this year, we are excited to align with Catalyst, and so the strategic plan that I mentioned. And those 2 summits are in development, but they will be really focused on the existing industries in Alabama that we're also looking to attract additional industry to the state so that they see more opportunity professionally in those industries and where Alabama can really shine. So if you haven't gone on a trip with 40 college students recently, it is absolutely exhausting, but it really has left me incredibly confident and optimistic about the students that our state is educating and the impact that they can have on Alabama. So this is my last slide, but if you know people that are, or you are hosting interns, please get with our team. Estes, again, would be a great point of contact there. You've got all sorts of contact information behind me, but we rely on information from our friends in the business community, friends in the economic development community. What we do is not successful without you. So please let us know what you're seeing, how we can help, because all of this is designed to help Alabama grow and make your lives better and those who are doing business and living here better. So thank you so much. I am honored to be here and appreciate each of you.
Got time for just a
All
couple
right.
questions.
Yep, a couple questions if anybody has one. Yes.
Thank you for all the work you're doing to attract talent to the state. What is the industry business that you're most excited for in the next 10 years in Alabama
I mean, you could look at a whole host of them, but I would say most of the ones that I personally am most excited about, and that I think you see sort of the most headlines and excitement globally around, is mobility. So everything from the AMP Center in Tuscaloosa, which is the Alabama Mobility and Power Center, which is doing incredible work to drive research and investment into battery technology, whether that's for electric vehicles or, everything we have has a battery in it. So there's a lot of research being done in that space. We have such assets in the aerospace and defense industries. I was actually, and Ashley and Lydia are here, I was at Leadership Alabama last weekend up in Huntsville, and it is remarkable the things that are going on in the defense space and really developing talent around engineering to really cater to the defense space. So part of that being aerospace and mobility up there too. Hey, David. Thank you. When you were my 5th grade basketball coach? You and Jeffrey? Oh, that's a fun one. So, I would say we've talked a little bit about this today, but workforce is always an issue. So, again, that's not limited to Alabama, but there is always a question of, do we have the right workforce to fill the jobs that these companies need? And there's a lot of great work being done. The governor established a new Department of Workforce Senator Greg Reed, former Senator Greg Reed, is leading that, and he is developing some really great policies around workforce that I think will continue to make Alabama competitive. I mean, I know, we don't want to see Alabama in various headlines that are not positive for our business attraction efforts. There is definitely awareness in Montgomery. And I think, just from conversations that we've had, there is definitely an effort to mitigate some of the social stuff that might come up sometimes when businesses are looking at Alabama. So I think we're in a pretty good spot right now. I mean, there's so much, the federal government, there's so much uncertainty there that we're trying to develop good economic development policy in Alabama and make it as easy as possible for those companies to come here. All right, good deal. Thank you.
Miller, thank you again for being here, all the work you're doing through EDPA. Greg, thanks for all you did for so many years at EDPA, and we recognize the great impact you all are having. So again, thanks for spending some time with us. I did want to mention real quickly about Bo. I forgot this. Bo is actually moving his personal residence today. So it's either a sacrifice or not. It might be a good day to sneak away to Kiwanis, but again, welcome aboard to Bo. And Miller, I did want to mention in your name and as thanks for being here today, we're making a donation to your charity of choice, the O'Neill Comprehensive Cancer Center. So thanks again. So great to see you all again. Join us next Tuesday. A little bit of a change of pace. We are hosting Alabama Symphony Orchestra President Mark Patrick and the music director for a fireside chat that our own Chuck Holmes will facilitate. So we look forward to that.